doing it that way. That's weird. Okay, thanks, Carla.
Well, Robbie might be on the line right now, so you might want to just let him know that it's not working.
Robbie,
Well, maybe he is.
Robbie, if you're there, it's Francine, and I just typed in 061-847-048. It says no meeting, but then when Carla sent me the full link, I was able to get in. Anybody else have issues with dialing in? It could just be me, my phone.
Okay, well, as long as you're here now, but
Yeah. Okay.
yeah. So I'm operating blind here today, guys. I don't know why, but we're working on the RingCentral upgrades, and there's some stuff that's not very user-friendly, so I apologize for that. But I'm here, and you can see me, and that's all that matters. So, but I like seeing everybody because I feel more engaged. It's a little frustrating not being able to see everybody. Let's see. I'm just going to try one more time. But meanwhile, welcome everybody. I apologize for seemingly being completely unorganized here, but I am prepared for you today to make this beautiful painting that I had so much fun creating for you. We'll do it together. I'm just going to look around here and make sure that everybody... We have quite a few participants, but I can't see any of you, so that's sad. We'll figure it out. Let's get this going. Meanwhile, you can get your paints put out. The colors that we're using today are always our primaries: red, blue, yellow, black, and a lot of white today because we're creating this very cold environment. Let's do it this way. I don't know. I'm going to say it's snowfall, our first snowfall at the end of fall before Thanksgiving, when it gets chilly everywhere in the world but Los Angeles. Actually, it was pretty cold last night. And we're going to be mixing the colors orange and brown and light blue for the background. So to start, let's get this positioned. Make sure I've got everybody in the lens here. Okay, and you all let me know if you're not seeing what you need to see. We're going to start by creating our background first. And it's going to be a light blue. So you're going to take a little blue and a lot of white and create enough light blue color to paint the entire canvas over, okay? So we'll start that way. That's pretty easy to get us going. We're already painting, look at that. No drawing yet. We'll be drawing in a minute. And we'll just get this going. I better put my water on this side. We're just mixing blue with white to create a light blue. Enough to cover your canvas. It doesn't need to be thick because this is just an underpainting. We want to have this light blue poke out behind our trees and our snow cover. So it's just enough to get it going. Just enough to cover the whole canvas. Light blue. And I've been saying this lately while we're painting. I know we're painting with primary colors, but if I call out a color that we're going to be mixing, for instance, in this case, orange, and you have a beautiful orange in your collection of paints already, you can just use that. That's fine. But we always want to know how to mix our colors just in case.
Yeah, Carla, my friend Lori, she has brain cancer.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I know. She's got like 14 months, and she loves to paint. I think she's the one that wanted to do the painting hours with you.
Yes.
This is before we knew she was diagnosed, but she mixed the colors is really helping her You know, she does it just to help her brain, you know, to mix different colors.
Oh, good.
But
Oh, yeah.
she could remember what it helps with her cognitive.
Absolutely. Painting is definitely an intellectual pursuit. It works all aspects of your brain, really keeps you focused. There's a lot going on.
So I'm gonna paint with her on Wednesday.
Wonderful.
So,
What you could do is take this live, tape the video,
oh yeah.
you could take the live video and use that to get it going, which will also include everything that you just said.
It's so amazing because she has exactly what we're doing right now. She says all she has right now is a blue and white background. So it's exactly what we're doing right now. So I will help her finish it.
Perfect. Okay, so we've got our blue background going. And at this point, I'm just debating whether or not we're going to, yeah, this is what we're going to do now. Rinse out your brush. You could use the same brush if you'd like. And we're just going to use pure white now, just white. We're going to create our snow dappled background. Dappled, right? Dappled means, you know, this motion. Kind of a staccato, impressionistic. And the goal is to let some of that blue show through, especially in the middle, right? Because we're going to have trees on the right, trees on the left, and we've got all this little path down at the bottom going on. So you want to just keep the focus of the blue at the top where, of course, the sky would be. I am missing a painting cloth. Let me grab it. I just dropped it on the floor. So sorry. Be right back. We do our best to work together via Zoom, or via Ring in this case. All right, I've got my cloth here. And while we're dappling our white, I'm going to talk to you about the rest of the painting. So here we go. Somebody's very, very loud. I don't want to mute everybody, but somebody's, maybe experiment with muting and see if that does the trick. Okay, so here's my brush. I'm just using a nice flat brush. And I'm dappling on white right on top of that blue. So what does that mean? Well, the blue might still be wet, especially if you made it very thick. But our goal is, and we'll be returning to this white a few times in this whole process. So let's just consider this as our first layer of white. And I want you to go all around the canvas with this white. Not so much at the bottom. The bottom quarter, don't worry about it right now, but let's do 75% of the top part of the canvas. So from here down, we're not so worried about it yet because we're going to be putting a pathway down there, and it's going to be covered with orange and brown and black and yellow and red, and then we'll put the white back on top of it. But we're going to be using a lot of white today, and we're going to layer. So nothing has to be extremely thick at this stage in the game, but I want you to purposefully leave the middle top area with some blue poking through it. All right, so that's our distant sky trying to shine through this snowfall that's starting. Okay. Now the rest of the painting, we're going to get to our drawing portion of the painting in just a minute. And I want to be able to draw today with our paintbrush. And I want you to find in your collection of brushes there, your skinniest brush, your liner brush. This is the one I'm going to be using. It's pretty skinny. Can you see that? Because we're going to be doing tree trunks and skinny fences and skinny branches, and that'll be the best brush to work with. So just for now, we're just going to get in our white. I'm still getting in white. But I know I'm going to come back and put more white, so I don't need this layer to be thick. It can be thin to medium. That's about it. So I'm going to put this in front again just to show you what we just did. So we got the snowfall in the background, and we left the center with some blue poking through. Later, if you decide you don't have enough blue poking through, you know, as the painting dries, you can add more later and then layer back more white on top of it. So don't get nervous about what the direction it's going in right now. We're going to start mixing the colors that we need to create our scenery. And before we get started, let me go over here and describe to you the best way to approach this. So we've always done this division, halfway down the middle, as your guide. You can do that if you need to, just to help you. But I think that you guys are capable of not doing that and just understanding proportions. So if you see, the horizon line is about the quarter mark, okay? So if this is the quarter mark, this is halfway, here's a quarter, and here's the last quarter. So if this is the lower right-hand quadrant, your horizon line is going to be about halfway down. And I will revisit that in just a minute. But before I do that, we need to start mixing our color. We're going to take a little bit of red, a little bit of blue, a little bit of black, and a little bit of yellow. So pretty much all your colors, except white. No white in this one. And we're going to create a brownish, darkish black color. That's all it needs to be, is brownish, darkish black. Here's black, here's my new color. We're going to draw with our paintbrush our features. So now that I've got my paint, also if you have brown, just use brown. But if you want to make brown, it's going to be red, blue, yellow, and black together to create this brownish color. So here's our halfway mark. We're just going to trace it with our mind. Halfway down the middle, halfway down the middle. That would mean that the quarter is going to be about there, right? So here's the middle. It's going to be on this lower right-hand quadrant. We're going to do a line there. There's the line. And then from that line, which is about an inch and a half long. This is a very simple drawing, guys. It's just to describe it to you. Sounds like I'm using a lot of words to tell you a very simple thing. You could just watch me. So from the end of that, you're going to take out the edge of the road is a diagonal right down to off the page down to the bottom corner of the canvas like that. And that's one side of the road. And then right at about the halfway mark of your painting, if this is the halfway mark, take that road out to the other end. like that. So that's this right here. Very simple drawing. There, we did it. We got the 2 marks. From the edge of the horizon line that you created, right here, you're going to take this line, and I want you to come down a little bit in front of that. And that's going to be the edge of the road. And then you're going to create a center right down the middle of the road. It's going to be right down the center. But at the front, I want you to split it in 2 and make it thicker. Right? Okay, so we've got this center of the road. It's thicker in the front, and then it gets really skinny, and it's going to disappear in the back. We aren't even going to see it when we're finished here. All right, now one more. From that same corner here, right here, we're going to go above the edge of our road, and we're going to come out and create another line way above it, and that's going to be our fence line. That's here. Right there. So I'm going to let you guys catch up with me. We need one more line for the middle of the road, and here's this corner of that horizon line again. We need to create this edge of the road. So we need one more line there. Now you'll see it. You should be able to see everything now. Here's the road. Here's the edge of the grass. Here's the edge of this grass. Here, I'm just going to fill it in so you can see. All right, I'm not filling it in completely. And then our fence. We are creating the illusion of perspective as though the tree, we're standing at the front of the road and then we're looking way back to the back here. So our fence in the front, we're going to start with one fence post right here, which is a vertical. A skinny, skinny line. And then do the second one. And as you go back to the end of the fence line, these posts are going to get closer and closer together. So the first one will start off about like that, but the next one is going to get closer to it and closer to it and closer to it and closer to it and closer to it. Right? Because they're being smashed together. Here's the first fence line, second fence line, closer, 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 closer. It helps your eye to go all the way back to the end of the road. And we're going to start with, I hope you're using your skinny brushes now because this is really going to help you. The first fence post that's horizontal, we're going to do two fence posts. 1, 2. Let me show you here. 1, 2. And that fence post you can have starting way at the back here in that back corner and following parallel to the top fence post. But it's going to get, you see how big that space is? And then the second one is going to come below. And you want this distance between each fence post to be equal. Equal spacing. What does that mean? This is equal, this is equal, this is equal. 1, 2, 3. All of these spaces, these 3 spaces, are going to be as equal as you can get them. As they move to the background, you can barely tell what they're doing, so don't worry about that. But in the front, you want these 3 divisions to be equal. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So I hope you can see that. Our drawing isn't looking like too much right now because this is just the bones of our drawing, the framework for what we're going to do next. So after you get your fence drawn in, take your time. I'll talk about these trees. We've got our 2 right and left trees dominant on the edge of the page, and they're leaning in as if they're just framing our canvas space. And that's how we're going to paint them. And then the next one is a little bit shorter and a little bit skinnier because it's going backwards in perspective. And the same with the next one. Skinnier and skinnier and lighter. And I will demonstrate that. Same color. Let's draw that first one. So I want the first one, the tree trunk, to be in front of the fence line. Here's my tree trunk's beginning. And I'm going to carefully create that tree trunk in the front, thicker at the bottom, thick, 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 and then getting skinny and wispy towards the top. I'm going to fill that in. We're sketching. This is a sketch, so we're not completing our painting for a long time. We're just sketching in the bones of our drawing. So that's our first tree trunk. And let's give it its partner on the opposite side. Same thing. They don't have to be the same size, but approximately in the same position on the right.
I lost it.
And so you're going to go up all the way up off the top of the page. And the bottom of the tree trunk is thicker, and then it gets skinnier and skinnier, and it just disappears into that first line that you created. And then I'm just going to fill it in so I can see my tree. There's 2 tree trunks. We'll put the branches in later. All right, the next tree is going to be a little further down. And I want you to consciously think about making the whole thing a little bit smaller. So the tree trunk is going to be smaller. And it's not going to go up as high, right? We're going to create this V shape in the middle of our painting. Here's the V shape. See that? All right, so this second tree isn't going to go up. It's not going to go all the way to the top. This one's going to be shorter. This one's going to be shorter, 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 and then just disappear. But what's left is this dramatic V shape in the sky. So that's what we're going for. So this one's going to be a little bit shorter. We'll go on this side, and we'll go a little bit closer together, and we'll do the same thing on this side. And this one's going to be a little bit shorter. And we'll do our third tree a little closer together. You see this space here that we created? Well, the next one is going to be closer together, just the same way that we approached doing the fence. I'm going to get a little bit closer together and then a little bit smaller. On the other side, a little bit closer together and a little bit smaller. I'm just using the tip of my brush so I can keep it skinny. That's a terrible looking tree trunk. Let me try to fix that. Okay, sorry tree trunk. And then keep going all the way to your horizon line with this, with the trees. See how many you can get in there. It should be shorter. They're getting skinnier and skinnier. I'm going to change brushes because I want to get even skinnier. I can fit a few more of these trees in here if I use a skinnier brush. Okay, so there's my tree line. Maybe there's one more in the back, maybe. One more in the back where the horizon line goes. So I fit in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I fit in about 8 trees. Maybe you can only get in 6 or 7. That's fine too. 1, 2, 3, 4. I only got 6 on one side and 8 on the other. And you want your trunks to be wider at the bottom, skinnier at the top. That's how trees grow. And we'll start laying in our tree branches. But I need to talk about these tree branches because they're going to be more towards the front. And then as we go back in the distance, we aren't going to see so many tree trunks. By the time we get back here, I don't even see tree trunks back. I mean, branches, excuse me, I used the wrong word. Branches back here aren't going to be as noticeable because we're going to put a lot of snowfall back there. So the branches are going to be more on the first 3 trees. I'm just calling these maple trees because I don't know what they are, but I like maple trees. So the trunks are going to be going off to the side, reaching for the sky.
I lost video for like 5 minutes. I'm so far behind.
Okay, what did you miss? Because we just put in our tree trunks. Can you?
That's what I'm touching up on right now.
Okay, so the trees, we created this V shape in the middle. You're not so far behind. We're all going very slowly here. And they're going to get smaller and skinnier and shorter and closer together as they move towards the horizon line, which is here.
Thank you.
Yes, so if we get that done, and I managed to fit in about 7 or 8 trees on this side and about 6 on this side, so it doesn't matter how many you can get in there. But just keep in your mind that you want them to get skinnier, shorter, and then closer together as you go back towards the horizon line. So there's a lot of distance here, and then it's less, and then it's less, and then it's less, and it's less, and it's less, and then just like we did the fence line. I'm going to come back in while you guys are finishing that part. I'm going to give my fence a little bit more paint because it was a little bit too see-through. And now we're going to move on to branches. So the branches, I'll repeat this. The branches are dominant mostly on the first 3. 1, 2, 3. The last bits are going to be covered in snow, so we don't really need a whole lot of branch detail back there because it's further in the distance. You aren't going to see it as much. But in the front, especially this first tree, take your time with these branches. Have some dripping down into the street. And then they're going to get, just like vein work, they're going to get little smaller branches coming off. And then some reaching all the way up into the sky. And they split off and they get smaller. And then let's do the second tree. Don't mind if the branches overlap each other. But of course, since the second tree is shorter, its branches aren't going to go off the page, off the canvas at the top. They're just going to go up to about here because they're shorter. They're visually shorter. They're not actually shorter. So I'm going to have one dripping into the street like that, dripping into the fence line that way, and going right off the page, right off the top of the canvas, and out towards the left side of the canvas. We're just building up some beautiful branches. The same thing with branches applies as we did the tree trunks. The branches are thicker where they attach to the tree trunk, but they get thinner and wispier as they go out to the edge. So keep that in mind. You don't want your branches to be the same size start to finish. So you lift up on your brush as you go. Press, lift, so it gets skinnier. Go to the next one. And we're going to maybe drip some off, drip one into the street here. I'm already out of paint, so I'm mixing again. A little black, a little red, a little blue, a little yellow, and I get this interesting brown color. And then my second tree is a little bit smaller visually than my first tree. And the third tree is probably the last one we'll give branches to. You could try to put a few branches on the distant trees, but I guarantee you they're going to get covered up. So I'm just going to put some little suggestions of branches back there, knowing that they are going to be obscured by the paint, the white paint and the leaves. Okay. So let's get about this far. I'm going to rinse my brush out. I'm calling this our sketch. And now we're going to actually paint. So we painted a sketch, and now we're going to do our actual painting in the rest of the canvas. And I'm going to start with black, and I'm going to darken up the first 3 trees with pure black. Not the whole tree, maybe just the lower half. I'm going to darken it up and give it this really aggressive color, only because I want to give the illusion that they're in the front. So the color is going to be more saturated, more dense. And we'll do some of the branches in black, but not all of them. Okay? So maybe have the black go out just a third of the way into your brown branches. Oh, there you all. Everybody's here now. You all just appeared for some reason. I don't know.
I heard it went boop, boop.
Yeah. Everybody just appeared. Hello. Okay. Can we all see? Now I've got to make sure you can all see this. All right. So once again, we're talking about our black trees. I'm starting with the tree trunks. The first 3 are going to be painted with a black layer. And I'm only going to paint about a third of the branches. I'm going to paint all the branches, but I'm only going to bring the black out a third of the way. And I'll leave the rest of it light brown or whatever that color was that we used in the beginning. Does that make sense? So you see how it's going black, and then I'm just leaving the rest of it brown. Black to brown, black to brown. And come back here and I'm going to do the second tree. And I'll do the same thing to it. Just give a few.
Carla, is the trunk getting...
I'm painting the trunk black on the second tree.
Okay.
And then I'm bringing the black through just about a third to half the way up the branches. And I'm trying to leave the edge of the branches with that original brown that we painted. Just let that brown show. And you can do that to the first 3 trees. That's about it for that. And I'll come over here on the left side and I'll do the same to the left. I'm only going to come up on the left side halfway up the tree because I want to put all this beautiful color in the rest of it, and I don't want the black to be too dominant. That's why we're only doing part of it. So I'm using my skinny brush. I'm not loading it up too thick. I'm twirling it in the paint to keep that tip pointed. About a third of the way in, create some branches. I want you to notice how I'm using my wrist to balance myself on the edge of this table rather than just holding my brush in the air. I find it really hard to make a straight, purposeful line if I'm just free forming it here in the air. So I balance myself. Maybe I'll rest one of my knuckles right onto the canvas. If I know it's dry over there, I can rest my knuckle. And it just helps me give a little bit more control to my brush stroke because I need it.
Carla, I learned a technique just for the first time where you said you twirl your paintbrush in the paint to get a point.
Yes.
And okay, so that's how you do that, all right.
And then I pull it. I pull it as I'm twirling it.
Ah, all these little secrets.
Well, you know, this is such an unconscious act for me to do it this way because I've been doing it for 50 years this way. So I forget to mention it sometimes. So if that was helpful, I'll give you more of those.
Yeah.
So same thing with the resting the hand and putting the knuckle down onto the canvas. A lot of artists use, the word is not coming to me right now. They'll use a large paintbrush like this, or a ruler, or there's actually a very special stick that artists use. I think it's called a dowel. And they'll hold it at the edge of the art board and then rest their hand on that. You see, this paintbrush is not on the canvas. It's off the canvas, but it's being balanced and secured on the edge of the art board. And then I'll rest my hand on that.
Ah, I see.
And that is how you can keep painting on your canvas even when it's wet, because then you don't have to touch it. So you just slide this up and down as you're working. And that is how the majority of painters deal with that problem of a wet canvas. They use a dowel stick like that. And that is a tool of the trade. And we're going to do the first 3 trees on this side as well. And then the fun gets more fun. All right. Lastly, with the black, we'll paint a little bit of black down the first third of that line down the middle of the road, just to darken it up. It's very sloppy right now. Doesn't matter because it's all going to get painted over with layers and layers. And I want to do the same thing with my fence. I want my fence to be darker in the front and then just light brown as it goes towards the back. So I'm going to just paint over the first third of my painting of my fence with black. I'm trying to keep it very skinny and fragile looking. So it's a skinny fence. Just darken those up a little bit. You can always go back over later if you need to. All right, so that's our second layer. We just darkened up these first 3 trees. We left the last bit of trees in the background in the brown or the light brown. And we're going to come in now and create our leaves. And I would grab a bigger brush for this, either a bigger round brush. I'm going to use this flat brush, and I'll just use the edge of the flat brush to create the texture of the leaves. And our leaves are going to range from orange to red to yellow and everything in between. And I will demonstrate that. So let's start with an orange. If you have orange, I put a little orange down here already, but I will show you, you can mix an orange with yellow and red together. So here's yellow, here's red. And whether or not your canvas is still wet, we can start working on the beautiful leaves here. Let's start in the front. We're just going to dab them down, but I don't want them to be polka dots. And you know what I mean when I say polka dots. They're just uniform looking. I want them to be different shapes. So some of them are just going to be a blob like that. Some of them are just going to be a tap-tap. And I want you to only look at your first tree. Don't look at the ones in the back yet, because I think that's going to get confusing. And let's just fill this tree up, paying attention only to those front branches. Let's fill our tree up with orange leaves. And I'm just dabbing it in. I'm going to go to the other side now. And I'm going to do that other tree.
Cookie.
So I hope that I'm conveying that I didn't make these polka dots. I made them. I'm thinking about leaves as I'm drawing them. And some of they're overlapping in some areas, so it's just a blob of dots. There's some at the tip here. There's some at the tip here. I'm just concentrating on that first tree. That's my puppy. Who is that, Bodhi?
Hi, Bodhi.
He's so big now.
I know, I saw that. Bruce walking him or running him. That was so cute.
Yeah. Bruce is out of town now, so he's all mine.
Where did he go?
His dad.
Oh my gosh, we'll have to talk about that.
Yeah. Once you get that first tree done, I want you to add, so we got this beautiful rich orange in the front. And then as we go back in space, I want you to add more yellow and more yellow and more yellow into your orange that you made. So it's getting lighter and lighter. So we're going a little bit lighter, and now I'm going to go to the tree in the back, and I'm going to punch in yellow. I want to see a difference in color there. It'll be subtle, but we're going to change that later. So you can put some of those yellow branches in the back. I mean, I don't mean to say branches. I meant to say leaves layered in the back. Maybe a couple poking in here. Maybe up on the top a little bit. And now I'm going to start in on the left side, and I'll do some light yellow-orange leaves on this one. Put a couple in there, change it up a little bit. I was attracted to this painting that I saw. I don't even know where I saw it, but I took a picture of it. And I've been holding on to it for the fall. I liked the idea of that the trees are on their last leg, basically. And the snow is coming in, so the weather's changing. So I liked the idea of showing the end of this tree's beautiful colored leaves. You know, because the next stage is that they fall off and they fall to the ground. So we're going to convey that too in this painting. All right, so that it just kind of slowly disappears towards the back. So you can see the difference in color. It might be subtle, but it's happening. Brighter orange in the front, and then it gets yellow towards the back on the back trees. But even that's going to change. We're just creating our next stage of the painting at this point. And having said that, let's take some of those colors and paint the side of the road. So I want you to use both colors. So I have the yellow on my brush right now, so I'm going to streak in a little bit of yellow, whatever's left on my brush. I'm going to go around these trees. And then I'll switch to that orange that I started with and paint in the rest of it. Again, with short little brush strokes. And instead of layering them together, I'm just going to let the colors sit next to each other. If they happen to blend, it's okay. We're going to do a lot to this painting before it's finished. So we got one side of the road. Let's get the other side of the road. Little short brush strokes. Get some orange in there. I'm even kind of dotting them down in the front. Towards the bottom in the front, if you dot them like this, it'll look like the leaves have fallen on the ground already. Okay, can we get this much done? And then we're going to go in even deeper on this project. It's going to get more exciting. You'll see it's going to start developing into something you didn't expect. So we got all of our little leaves done. We got the bottom of the side of the road done. What else can we do before we move on? Let me think. That's pretty good. All right, we have to all get to this point because we want it to be a little bit drier as we move on. Let's go back, when you're ready, to a square brush like this, or a round brush like this. Could be a bigger round. Let me see, I've got one more that maybe might be good for this next stage. Yeah, I can work with these. I can work with these. Okay, we're going to put some snowfall in. I'm going to start with the road because that's the most obvious. And at the back of the road, we're going to be brushing in the direction that the road is shaped. So coming down in a vertical brush stroke, we're going to start painting the back of the road, follow the edge of the side of the road, and come all the way off. And we're just going to paint little stripes in there. But they're more solid in the back, and then we're just going to leave the front with some blue showing through. So that gives the illusion of maybe the road has been tread upon and it's a little bit rough. And then you'll start in the back, right here at the top of the road, and you'll paint that in white. And I'm just dabbing it in so that if the blue happens to show through, it happens to show through. If the white blends with the leaves and starts mixing, that's kind of beautiful. Let that happen. So we got the back of the road, stripes going down, but you see what it's ending up to look like? I'm letting a little bit of that blue in the front show through, following the direction of the road. And then I started painting solid white in the back, and I'm going to build that up all the way to the top. We're just working down the center right now. And the reason we're just working down the center is because I'm trying to let this stuff dry so that we can go in and put some snow on it in a minute. So let's let this dry a little bit. I'm even tempted to get the hair dryer out, but I'm trying not to. So if we just work in the middle, that's what I was afraid was going to happen. I just grabbed some orange and mixed it in here, so now it's pink, which means I'll have to go over it later with some more white, so I have to be careful. By the way, if your painting is very wet like mine and you have a hair dryer, you can go and dry it if you need to. But we'll try to work with that. We'll try to work wet. We're going to just take these white brush strokes up to the top, stay in the middle so you don't get too much color from the leaves because they're wet. And I want you to consciously leave a little bit of blue showing towards the top middle, as though the clouds are breaking through. There's just a little bit of sky showing through the snow. Get at least that much done. And you don't need to finish it right now. You can come back because we're working in stages. I have to go back over my pink that I made, so I'm going to come back in here. Okay. Let's get that much done. Go ahead and if you get that much done, take the side of your brush. I'm using a flat brush, so I'm just going to use the edge of it, and I'm going to bring some snow down onto the side of the road too. Just little patches of snow, not everywhere. And I'm painting in the direction of the road, so from front to back, back to front, in the direction that the road is going. And that is going to get skinnier and less noticeable as we move to the back. But as we get to the back, it's going to get more solid looking. And in the front, we'll see some snow on the edge like that. I'll do it to the other side. So some little snow patches here. If your paint is too wet, like mine is right now, just remember that, and we'll come back to it as it dries. I'm just putting a little bit in where I can. Okay. My paint brush has picked up a bunch of orange and yellow. So I'm going to rinse it off because in this next stage, I want to try to keep it pure white. We're going to create this illusion that the sky is dappled with snowfall. And we're going to start covering up some of our leaves. So don't be alarmed, but this is so much fun. I'm taking pure white. And now, I didn't want you to do polka dots before, but here we go. We're going to pretend that these leaves are white. And I want you to start punching in some white leaves, starting at the top, right on top of the other leaves, but in between them, think about in between space. So the light spaces between the leaves and the background, dab in white right on top of that. So what's happening is that the white is blending with leaves. And it's becoming dappled looking. So once again, I'm taking my white paint and I'm dabbing it in all the light areas. So it's creating this dappled texture. And if it picks up the color of your leaves, that's actually a good thing. Dab, dab, dab. And in this case, if my paint is wet, it's actually a good thing because it's working to help me give that snowfall effect. So I'm going even into these solid areas and putting some white in there too. And take your time with this because as you're painting, you're looking around your canvas and saying, okay, does that look right? Does that look good? Do I want some more here? If some of the white gets onto the tree trunks, that's okay. You want that. And consider this a layer. This is our next layer of paint. We'll be coming back on top of it later to do other things. But for now, we're just dappling in white. And now I'm going to go to the opposite side and start working over there. I'm going to start at the top. Just push that white paint in between the leaves. Push it in there. All the way down the line. As you go towards the back, if you feel like you need to switch to a smaller brush, as it works better for you, then do that. Because it would make sense that as it moves to the back, the little dots get closer together and it becomes more of a solid shape. You're going to see more detail towards the front than you will in the back. So there's going to be more white showing. I'm going to put a little bit of snow on the tree trunk, just a little bit, in a very light manner. Just a little bit of snow. I'm barely touching, just softly laying down a little bit of snowfall right on those front ones, but not too much, because I want all the snowfall to be in the back. If you get this much finished, then we'll move on, but I'm going to slow down because I feel like I'm going too fast. Just come back in here. Maybe put some more snow down at the bottom. We have a couple more stages to do before this is completely finished, so I can move back and forth. Put some more details. Details in the front, but not in the back, because you can see details if they're close to you. You can't see details the further back in space. So you could do a few little purposeful shapes up in the front. Maybe put some more orange in there. It's up to you. Put a little bit more orange in the front. Going back in on top. Maybe I'm going to put a little orange streak down the middle of the road, just for fun. Maybe I'll put a little orange streak in the tree trunk. Just the ones in the front, maybe it's a little bit of orange color on the front of the trees. First two, maybe the first two, because it's going to change dramatically in just a second. We're going to get about this far. So I went back in and I put some little orange highlights on the first two trees. A little bit of orange highlight on the front of the road, down at the bottom, just for fun. And what we have to do is we're going to really push our background into the background. And the way we do that is, if you think about light and space, when you're standing close to something, you're going to see more detail. But especially in a snowfall, the further back you look, the more dense everything becomes, because now you're having to look through all kinds of elements. So to convey that, we're going to take our white again. I'm going to dab off some of it so I don't have too much color on my brush. So I'm just dabbing off some of it. And I'm going to start in the back. And if you still have a horizon line showing here, lightly paint over it so that you can barely see it now because there's so much density in the back. Right? So this is basically dry brushing. Dry brushing means, well, quite literally, I have paint on my brush. I'm drying it off on my cloth or my paper towel, and then I'm just patting it back in, and I'm covering up that horizon line completely because we can't see it. It's so thick back there. We don't know where the edge of the road is. So and now with the rest of the paint, I'm going to cover up those back trees, but not all the way, just some of the way. Dry brush, dabbing in lightly. So we're obscuring those back trees, including the trunks. So obscure those trunks, but you don't want them to disappear completely, but they're getting a lot of snow on them in the back. And let's go up all the way. Keep in your brain which ones are in the back. Let's put some more white on those back trees. Oh my gosh, I just got blue on my brush. I need to wash it. All right, so what we're doing right now is very purposeful. We're imagining that we're just putting extra white on those back trees. All right, so even if they're mixing in with the front trees, that's okay. We want the back trees to be covered up with some white. Maybe this third one is going to have a little bit of white on front of it. So you see it's as though the trees in the back are virtually disappearing. We'll probably put one more layer of white on the back tree, but let's get at least the first 3 or 4 in the back covered with an extra layer of white. And I'm just dry brushing it, pat, 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 all the way down to the fence, the tree trunks, everything is getting an extra soft layer of white. And that's going to push our perspective even deeper. So we have to imagine which trees are in the back. So these edges will be obscured because they're going in the back. And as these tree trunks approach the front, give them a little brush of white. But in the back, towards the very, very back, we're going to give those last few trees an extra layer of white, so they're almost disappearing into the snow because it's so dense back there. We're creating this illusion. And at the top of the trees, I'm going to give the top right and left corner, an extra layer of white just in the corner so that those trees are really disappearing into the cold. Extra layer. Wow, it's looking cool. I'm going to go up here to the top corner and give that corner just an extra treatment of white in that dry brush technique, especially the edges, because the edges are disappearing into the mist, so they're not going to be sharp. So I'm just going to soften up the edges with a little bit of white dry brush. It looks so cool. I'm going to dab a little bit of white in here before I call it finished. really close. I want this center to be solid white in here. So it's just, gosh, I don't want to go down that street. It looks so cold. Putting an extra layer of white down there. So it's almost, and this is very dry. There we go. Maybe a little extra layer of white on the road. Letting some blue show in at the bottom. So I've got blue showing in at the bottom and up here in the sky. And if it shows through anywhere else, that's actually a nice effect. I really like my painting. I want to stop now, but if you look around, you might see some areas where you want to add in some drama with color, but you really only want to do that to the front trees. So what if I wanted to add some extra leaves on top? Why not? Just for drama. I'm actually doing this in pure red. And just on the first tree, pure red. Just a few here and there. Maybe on the trunk, a little reflection just for drama. Maybe a little red on the ground. I don't know. Trying to be dramatic here. Only in the front. And what that's doing, because red is such a saturated color, you could use orange or yellow, it doesn't matter. But I like the red just for drama, just to pull my eye towards the front again. So I'm not going to put that red in the back. So I want to keep the back very subtle and subdued. But just to emphasize perspective. We create perspective with color, and we create perspective with line, color and line. So the brighter and more saturated the color in front, it pulls our eye to the front. The more muted and tinted goes towards the back. So it creates this drama. So I'm just keeping those dramatic colors in the front. Maybe one there. And that's about it. There's my finished piece. If you have any questions, this is a good time to just pop in. But I'm going to keep my painting up here so that you can see it. See all that drama of the red and the orange and the black is only in the front. And as it disappears into the back and the top, we layered in some extra white. And we poked holes in the trees with our white paint. Poked holes in the leaves so that our trees end up looking more sparse and not as healthy and full as they would in the middle of fall, but they're starting to thin out and drop off to the bottom of the snow. And that's why we layered in that, we punched in, dappled in the white.